What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, the Carolina Collector. Before I begin, I want to say thank you to my YouTube subscribers, viewers, supporters, friends, family, neighbors, my eBay customers. All of you have been absolutely wonderful. As a matter of fact, special shout out to my eBay customers. You ladies and gentlemen have cleaned out my most recent listings, so thank you for that. Recent orders have gone out as of today. I just got back from food shopping, and a couple of the guys came with me to help me, with grocery shopping and what have you. But your orders are now out the door at the post office, so just keep track of your tracking numbers. Bear with me, I'm a little hazy today because we're pushing 90 degrees. It is steaming hot outside, and we've had 2 straight days of rain. So as you can imagine, the humidity is not good, and for somebody that's got issues with their lungs, let me tell you, it's a rough day. I just turned on my AC. It's just too humid in here for me to run the fan. So I figured, well, hey, I haven't ran my AC so far for the first time in the season. I tell you what, it's worth not dying in my home. You know what I mean? But anyway, I really didn't want to get into this particular topic. But enough of my fellow content creators in the sports card space have recently released videos about the most notorious hobby content creator there is here on YouTube, and that is Mr. Geoff Wilson of Sports Card Investor. If you know who he is, he needs no introduction. Everybody has something to say about the guy. Now, I'm not making this video to start internet beef or any nonsense like that. I'm not trying to defame his character. I'm not trying to put him down. I want to focus on the hobby in and of itself and some of the things that he said that really left a lot of us like, what the hell? I mean, I watch his stuff. I mean, credit to him. He does release, statistics and things like that, but these most recent videos leave much to be desired in the eyes of a lot of us hobbyists out there. Now, I'm not exclusively a sports card guy. As you know, I collect jerseys and Transformers toys along with sports cards and, various other items. So, even though I've got back into the hobby over the past 2 years, I'm not going to claim I'm an expert or anything like that. Obviously, I'm an eBay seller and reseller, but I'm also a buyer as well. He happened to have mentioned the Ken Griffey Jr. Upper Deck rookie, which I happen to have, in the PSA 10. I think you ladies and gentlemen have seen this on the channel already. And forgive the reflection of my window out there. I got to get that natural light in here. And he also mentioned a Don Mattingly Donruss rookie. I happen to have his Topps equivalent right here in the PSA 10. And I have several other, junk wax era slabs. And I'm still chasing a couple, as a matter of fact. But some of the things that he said really boggle the mind. I'm of age. When we were kids, we would go to the corner stores. We would buy packs of Marvel cards and Fleer or Leaf or Upper Deck. I was still in junior high school at that time when Upper Deck came out. And, there were no such thing as what you see today with these parallels and these crazy inserts and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you had image variations and maybe time to time you had inserts and whatnot or parallels, but it's not like it is today. And Geoff was basically excoriating everyone and anyone talking about this hobby, especially when it comes to parallels and things like this. He's not the arbiter of the hobby. This is a man who, from a little research, he is a businessman. I think he dabbles in technology and all that kind of stuff, and now he's got into sports cards. And when he's uploading shorts talking about, I'm going to open up a pack a day until I pull a $5,000 parallel, well, that makes him a hypocrite. Because if he's talking about chasing down cards like this when we were kids, then why open up his mouth talking about chasing parallels? Yeah, the sports card hobby has changed since I'm a kid, but not for nothing. Parallels have gotten out of control, and as a result, we have thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of base cards. I know most of you, like myself, are eBay sellers or resellers or what have you, but I'm also a hobbyist. How many packs and boxes of cards have I opened up on my channel over the past year or so? You know, and it's nice to get autographs and parallels and stuff like that, but something has been lost. There was a real treat to pull something like this out of an Upper Deck pack, you know? And now it's been diluted by, you know, gold numbered refractors now out of 2025, out of $9.99, out of $7.99, out of $5.99, out of $2.99, out of $1.99, out of 99, 75, 50, 25, 5, 1 of 1, you know what I mean? And then your superfractors. Then you got your patch relics and all this stuff. And it's lost something. Something in the hobby has been lost. And many content creators, you know, Neo Cards and Comics said this, Dan the Card Man has said it, Sports Card Dad has said it. You know, it's become gambling now, essentially. It's another form of gambling. It's like me going to the corner store, or going to Walmart, picking up scratch tickets. I love opening up cards. I love opening up boxes of cards. This year, I've actually stepped it down quite a bit compared to what I did last year, because at least I have the common sense to know when to stop. Because a lot of guys are throwing away their money, and there's a story going around right now about a card collector who was obsessed, I believe, with basketball, and now he's, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars in debt. You know, I've had the sense, I've opened up plenty of flagship here on the channel in 2025. I skipped over Bowman. You know, I'm probably going to skip over Series 2. I'm going to see what happens when Chrome comes out later this year. But right now, you know, I gotta start putting some money back in my pocket. I have to have common sense. But with that being said, you know, to come out into the public space, especially on YouTube, you know, where, you know, you're going to have people that are going to react. Unfortunately, the human condition will cause us to react, you know, and what I saw myself and what I heard from that latest rant video that he opened up, I consider what he said to be hypocritical, because he just recently did a whole series of shorts talking about opening up sports packs, every single day until he pulls out, you know, a huge card. And meanwhile, when you go and you look at his videos in Cards HQ, most of his shelves contain parallels and refractors. So how can you bash the hobby for chasing parallels when he himself chases after parallels and saying that the hobby is dead and all this kind of stuff? Get out of here with all that nonsense. I love pulling rare and strange cards. I think we all do. There's a certain panache about that. Here, I pulled that Barry Bonds auto on camera. I pulled out a bunch of oranges and reds and autos on camera. You know, I got a Fred McGriff auto, you know, which is cool. I got a Paul Molitor, I think I've talked about. There's quite a few cards that I want to have slabbed. But to come out and start bashing hobbyists and trying to tell people what to go do with themselves and how they go about the hobby, hey man, I'm not the end-all be-all of these hobbies. You know, I'm just a schmuck with a baseball cap, you know, who has a small potatoes little thing that he runs out of his apartment selling cards on eBay. I'm nobody. You know what I mean? Either you like the content or you don't. That's just how it works. But to come out and start bashing people, first off, and I have to say this out of personal experience, because there are a lot of people that are out there that simply cannot afford the price of these cards. This Ken Griffey Jr. right now currently can go anywhere between $2,500 to $3,000. I paid $1,700 for this at the time, and that's a PSA 10 Ken Griffey. Same goes for a Don Mattingly. You don't see these pop up. You'll see the autos pop up where only the auto is graded, but the card is crap. You know, you'll see a lot of PSA 6s, 7s, and 8s on eBay these days. But to actually get a PSA 10, I'm very lucky I grabbed one of these when I saw it. And now they're going for like, what, $1,500, $1,600? I mean, I didn't pay that, but that's what they're valued at right now. But I don't have that kind of money. You know, if I do have that money and I splurge, yeah, fine, good for me. But, you know, there are only certain cards that I go after that I truly want. I mentioned it, like my top chase cards right now I would love to get would be a Gary Carter auto of some type, a Mike Piazza auto of some type, an Eli Manning auto of some type. You know, guys like that I watched, you know, that I was a huge fan of, you know. I would love to get a Don Mattingly auto of some type, but right now it's not in the cards for me because I know when to stop. I have the common sense not to keep going because I don't want to be homeless. I was homeless for a year, many years ago, and I really don't feel like living in my car again like I once did. But, you know, you learn from your past. You know, you can't let people chain you down to your past. You have a right to move past your past. For example, like with Pete Rose. But that's another subject for another day. My point is that, you know, he's got no right to try to be the arbiter of this hobby. He has no right to tell you how to spend your money. Yeah, there are certain things I don't like. For example, breakers. You know, breakers to me suck. They've ruined the hobby. They scoop up all of this stuff, like what happened with the Paul Skeens 1-of-1 patch auto. You know, and that's become the talk of the town because the thing is inside of a special case now, and it's on public display, and it's not centered, and all this drama. You know, and, you know, guys are paying to clear out these hobby boxes and jumbo boxes, and then small potato guys like me can't get them. As a matter of fact, there is a section on the Topps website that if you are a professional breaker here on YouTube or whatnot, or what have you, they actually sign you up for special deals and contracts. Like what happened with me last year with Top Sapphire. I had 2 boxes of them that came out to $900. It was taken out of the money was taken out of my account, and it was instantly refunded. Why? Because the breakers got priority in it. Anytime it turns into a goddamn business like this, especially if you're trying to earn YouTube revenue. I worked 13 years in union construction. I'm out on permanent disability because of what I did at the World Trade Center and various other injuries, like with my back and everything like that. You know, I earned my right to sit on my cloud, but I'm not rolling in a dough like that. You know what I mean? And to be able to afford a box of cards like that, I should consider myself lucky. And at least now that I become an LLC where I had some smarts to try to make money on top, or actually supplementing my income is a proper way to say it. You know, at least I've got the smarts to know when it's like, hey man, time out, you know, wave the white flag of surrender. But these guys are just buying and buying and buying and buying and buying. How come Jeff Wilson doesn't excoriate those guys? You know, I love talking about Transformers. I love talking about my jerseys, my hats, my sneakers, all that kind of thing. You know, it's not the only hobby I have, but I'm not the arbiter of it. I'm not trying to control the hobby, and it really comes off as like he's trying to control the hobby, and he's trying to tell all of you what to do. I think most of us normies will say, yeah, breakers suck because they are taking the supply of these cards and essentially forcing idiots to play the lottery with them. You know, there are a lot of cards I want. You know, I really didn't want to get a PSA 10 Paul Skeens yellow foil from update from last year, but I had all of those singles that I sold that I either pulled myself or bought secondhand or through third parties, and I ended up selling them. I wanted to color match that card with an SGC slab, but it happened to be that the price was right for a PSA 10, and I really didn't feel like going through the hassle, so I caved. Sometimes, and I made a video about this recently, where you got to make decisions based on your current situation. Buy, sell, thin out your hobby, stop buying stuff and sell what you have to put money back in your pocket, try to get the hobby to pay for itself. But Mr. Hypocritical wants to bash you because of junk wax era cards and parallels and all that stuff, that apparently the hobby is dying and dead. As far as I'm concerned, from what I've been seeing, the hobby seems to be thriving quite well. You know, I see a lot of my fellow content creators step in the box. You know, Jab's family. Well, yeah, he does do the breaker stuff. Striker Breaks is always uploading content. Sports Card Dad, Neo Cards, Dan the Card Man. You know, guys like that. You know, they treat the hobby the way they do, and they stay in their lanes. But when things start to go off on a skew or a tangent, you know, sometimes, you know, it's time for us to kind of step up to the plate and voice our opinions on this. And what Geoff does, to me, it comes completely out of left field. You know, he owns a sports card shop in Georgia. And what do you think, just like in the gaming sector, just like in the toy collecting sector, when you have rare cards or rare toys or even rare jerseys, what do you think he's going to do? Buy those cards for a quarter of what they're worth and then flip them for market value, thus profiteering. You know, even with myself, I try to keep my prices competitive. I try to keep my prices as low as possible compared to what I see out there. You know, all them parallels I just sold recently, you know, it was from a return customer who resells my cards. Coincidentally, I have no problem with that. I'm not insulted by that. It's just that's how the hobby works sometimes. Hey, if I'm somebody else's supplier, hey, good for me. You know what I mean? And if they could do better than I can, more power to them. I will never take that as an insult. I think there's like 3 or 4 of you that do that. But again, like I said, that's just the nature of the hobby. If I'm supplying people with stuff that they can resell and they do better than me, hey man, kudos. That's just the way the hobby works. Sometimes I get over, you know what I mean? But I'm not some big time schmuck with a card shop. I'm just a guy with a desk that I bought off of Amazon for dirt cheap, with all sorts of stuff that I get from Staples and Home Depot. That's my sports shop. You know what I mean? And if I get any kind of parallels or refractors and stuff like that, then more power to me. But, you know, this insatiable hypocrisy that he promotes about the hobby and trying to tell all of you what to go do with yourselves, I think it really says a lot about where he is. Now, again, I'm not insulting him. I'm not bashing him. Obviously, I haven't called him names because people always default to making fun of people and insulting them and attacking their family. I'm not doing that. I'm focusing on this subject matter in and of itself. You know, he might be the nicest guy in the world. You could sit down with him and have a beer with him, or, you know, go out to lunch or what have you, but he is a businessman. Keep that in mind. Again, even though I have an LLC, and anybody can look me up, the Carolina Collector, I'm right here in North Carolina, you know, that's a fact. I'm not anything big. You know, I didn't make a ton of money last year, and besides, because of the nature of my income, I got to be careful how much I make. I have to stay under a certain threshold, you know, so there are a lot of caveats to what I do. You know, otherwise, you know, I could find myself, you know, in a pickle, and I don't want to. I mean, I already got enough drama going on off camera. I really don't need any more. You know what I mean? Especially financially. But the thing is that you can't tell people what to go do with themselves. If people want to chase parallels, they're going to chase parallels. Just like Geoff. Watch his videos. That's all you see in his videos. He's always trading off. Again, these are maybe one of or two of the most expensive cards I have in my collection. I know I have a couple more slabs. Like I have a Jackson Merrill out of 50. What do you call that from Bowman Chrome? I think it's a speckle or something. Not a speckle, a shimmer out of orange. I'm sorry, it's a gold out of 50 shimmer auto. That thing's like $3,000 on eBay, a PSA 10, and I bought that thing for half price when he just was becoming bigger and bigger and bigger than what he already is. You know. And he talks about these cards. He has these cards. He holds them in hand. He broke up, what did he do? He did a box of 1987 Topps, chasing down the Barry Bonds rookie, which I have in the standard set, not the Tiffany set. And it's worth about $360 in the PSA 10. But he can do that. Every video, like Teapot did it recently, where they're going around their own shop, pulling cards out of their cases. Most of them are parallels. Most of them are refractors. Most of them are autos. Most of them are relics, or a combination of any of those, because you can have a parallel auto relic. Yes, that's true. You can have the combo. I have a couple of them in my personal collection. But don't tell us what to do and what not to do with the hobby. Not everybody can afford that kind of money. You know, like right now, I'm taking a pause on buying any more sports cards. That's why I'm focusing more on the selling this year. Unless Chrome comes out later this year, which I probably will focus on, I'm skipping over all the middle stuff. I open up plenty of flagship. I really, right now, want to do some catch-up now. And I have that right to do that, because I'm completely satisfied with what I have at this point, until Chrome comes out. But the sad fact of the matter is the hobby continues to have these dark shadows lingering over all of us because of all the nonsense and drama that goes on. Like patch swapping, again, breaking the box breakers, taking supply out of the hands of guys like me who just wants to open up a box of cards innocently. And if I happen to get some hits, hey, kudos for me. Maybe those hits are something I don't want. Again, I mentioned the Mitchell & Ness cards I sold recently. I lost interest in them because I'm trying to further refine my slab collection. So, I mean, that's just, the nature of the game as per my personal interest. But don't tell me what I should, what I should and shouldn't collect. We see this in a gaming space. Pat the NES Punk is a wizard and a master of talking about this sort of thing. When you see guys trying to grade video games, for example, you can get those ROMs online for free if you can still find them. Of course, Nintendo and Sega went after guys dropping ROMs online, but it's the internet. You know how this works. Somewhere out there you'll find them. But, you know, guys are, these companies are trying to grade these video games, and it turns into a dumpster fire. It's all bullshit. So, to Geoff Wilson, not for nothing here, You know, you can't tell other people what to go do with themselves. I gave up trying to do that a long time ago. I try to stay in my lane. I believe in certain political ideologies. I try not to. I have sprinkles of it sometimes throughout my channel, but my channel is mostly a collecting channel and talking about the hobbies. And to try to dictate the course of where the hobby goes, that's not up for you to decide. The hobby as a whole is going to decide that. And obviously all the pushback you've been getting, and this is my first time I've ever spoken up about this. You know, again, I'm not putting him down as a person. It's just, it's the hobby aspect of you know, what he discusses on YouTube is what should bother all of you. You know, controlling the hobby, controlling any hobby. It, pardon me. Again, it's the humidity, guys. When you try to control hobbies and you try to control things like this, it's going to have a backlash. You know, you see this in the Star Wars cosplay community. Believe me, I know what I'm talking about with that. You know, they want you to just be a statue waving high. You can't have any individuality, any personality. You can't be a standout guy. Otherwise, they're going to come after you and attack you. You see this in the toy collecting space. You know, when it came to New Age Romulus, a.k.a. Megatron, they made him into a Walther P-38. People are losing their minds. Oh my God, look out, he's a gun. Well, he was a gun in G1. And now Super Robot Ed came out with something, or Super Ed Robot, forgive me if I'm, you know, screwing your channel name up. You know, he released a video, a couple other guys released a video about Studio Series 86 Megatron, which I have zero interest in, because G1 Megatron was a Walther P-38. If you're not able to look past that, the problem is you. And of course, all the Gen Zers and the morons that are out there that are in their 20s. We're talking about grown-ass men here, and even some of you 30-year-olds out there. You're men. You're adults. Grow up. They're toys. Okay, it's not that important. You know what I mean? It's just the whole thing is ridiculous and absurd and pathetic. You know, if people want to get that Studio Series Megatron, have at it. I actually, on my desk right here, as much as I hate, loathe, and despise this Megatron, he's up there just as, you know, something to look at. You know, it's a distraction. It's escapism. You know, even the infamous Devastation Prime, which I talked about here on the channel, he's here on my desk too. I haven't got little midget Legacy Optimus Prime here, who's in his pose, by the way, getting ready to take out some Decepticons. You know, that's how I treat the hobby. I try to have fun with the Transformers stuff, because I don't take it seriously. I'm a grown-ass man. I'm not out there rolling around in the grass playing Transformers. You know what I mean? They're statues to me, but they're cool. They're fidget spinners. Every so often I mess around with one, put it back up on my desk or on my shelf, and that's that. You know, I'm not having secret meetings with grown men playing Transformers in a dark room somewhere. You know what I mean? But just to wrap this up in a nice, neat little bow, don't control the hobby. Don't even try it, because, you know, guys like me and other content creators are going to come out and we're going to speak up against this sort of thing. You know, this is a man that goes to card shows. This is a man that went to that big Tops thing that they had recently. This is a man that flexes thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars at card shows, you know, and makes these extraordinary trades and all this crazy stuff. That's why I respect guys like Scotty B and Blabbing About Slabbing and them fellas. They're really cool guys. Those are hobbyists, in my opinion. This guy is nothing more than a businessman. He cares about making profit, couldn't care less about the hobby. I'm sure he has an extensive collection somewhere in a room in his home. I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, if I was rolling in dough, I'd have a separate room just for my hobbies. But flexing like the way he does and then come out and bash the rest of us, that's the only way I can sum it up. I'm lucky I was able to afford these. You know how long it took me to get these in the first place? I consider myself lucky. I can go to my bedroom right now, where I got my slab collection, and pull out some heavy hitters. But you know what it took for me to get those? How many of you can afford $500, $600, $700 boxes of cards? I'm sure you can't. You know, many of you work hard. Many of you, you know, I know what it's like to suffer financially. I know what it's like to go through hard times. Look at the bullshit I'm going through right now, as a matter of fact. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want what I'm going through. You know, every day I live in fear because of what's going to probably come down the road next. Excuse me. Man, that humidity's awful. But no one They're hobbies for a reason. Unless you're causing harm, or the intent is to cause harm, or push a political ideology, like with furries, or like what Disney's been doing. Oh man, I'm falling apart here. Forgive me. The humidity and the pollen, it's really, really bad today. I'm probably going to have to take medication today. Anyway, Disney with their nonsense. You got Disney collectors out there, but then they injected their political nonsense into it. That's why I try to stay back as much as I can. Yeah, there'll be little sprinkles of it, but it's not exclusive. A lot of these hobbies are exclusively political. Furries are a great example of that. You know, a lot of those people, and let's just face it, not poking fun, but a lot of these people are what we were considered to be nerds, dorks, people that'll never have a girlfriend or a boyfriend. You know, they're obese or whatever it is. You know, they're strange to us, but they're still human beings. Leave them the fuck alone. You know I criticize a lot of people out there, but as long as they're not bothering me and they're not trying to push their crap on me, leave these people alone, for God's sakes. You know, unless children get involved or crimes are being committed or drugs are being pushed, yeah, then we have to say something must be said in that case. If they don't bother me, you know what I mean? As long as they stay away from me, I'm cool with it. Just go over there. Keep your shit to yourself. Even some of you may not agree with some of my takes. That's fine. That's what makes America what it is. But in this case, guys, I mean, in my opinion, you know, he flexes quite a bit. And he flaunts it here on YouTube. Do any of you own a storefront? I don't. I'm here in my home in front of a $100, $200 desk from Amazon. That's my office. Can you afford that kind of stuff? How much did I pay? Well, actually, you guys helped pay for that through my eBay sales. That's the modified camera stand that I got, that you guys helped me to customize. And I appreciate that. And I show my gratitude here on YouTube all the time. You know, because I want to try to make the best content and have the best hot takes and all that kind of stuff. But again, I'm not the end-all, be-all here on YouTube. And to go around talking about the hobby the way he does, he's out of touch. You know why? Because once you reach a certain level, financially or business-wise, you forget your roots and you forget where you come from. You forget that you had to start from the bottom up. A lot of sports people will say this. A lot of them started with nothing, or came up in poverty, or one of their family members died and they were raised in a single-family home, and they come from really bad roots, and then they elevate themselves. And there are a few of them that forget where they come from. You know, I'm not going to lie about some of my friends that are around here. I'm not going to divulge their backgrounds, but a lot of them come from, not bad backgrounds as they are bad people. That's not what I'm saying. But they just found themselves in unfortunate situations over the years, like even the one I'm in right now. They didn't ask for it. They didn't want it, but they're there. And they're trying to live their lives and be the best versions of who they are right now. What happened back then shouldn't matter. It's what you're doing right now, just like with Pete Rose. And hey, if they get a baseball card in a card pack, or they get a hat or something like that, they're happy. I've given away jerseys to some of these guys and sneakers. That's not a lie. That's a fact. And they're completely content because I can do that. And I'm not arrogant enough to flaunt things over people's heads. Here, I had the guys over yesterday. I have extra food. I share it with people. That's just my nature. You guys have been watching the shorts. Look at the signs these guys gave me. They're not worth $1 million, but to me, they have sentimental value. And that's the point. You value things as you want to value them. But flaunting it in people's faces, to me, is ridiculous. All of us as content creators, we all have something we enjoy. I love my sneakers. I love my jerseys. I love my Transformers. I love my hats. And I love my sports cards. But at the end of the day, that doesn't make me king of the hill. I'm just another guy. You know what I mean? Do I have a little bit more money than some people? Do I have a lot less money than certain people? My car, that thing's a rolling dumpster fire. I'm surprised the wheels haven't fallen off yet. You know what I mean? But I still appreciate those trivial things. It's very shocking when you see a guy like this talking about the sports card hobby the way he does, and then meanwhile flaunts cards like this. And bigger ones, too. These are small potatoes in his hands. I'm not one of these guys that bashes business people. Like, everybody bashes the Orange Man, our president, number 47. Because, he's a businessman. He's very savvy. He knows his shit. And that's why people bash him, because he's a little smarter, a little wiser, and a little tougher. He's very shrewd. You know, and maybe in some ways a little stoic when it comes to the way he makes his deals, and rightfully so. He gets things done. But, you know, you don't have to be an asshole doing it. And the way he flexes here on YouTube leaves a lot to be desired. Leave the little guy alone. Leave small potatoes guy like me alone. You know, I don't have a huge slab collection. I just sold off about almost a dozen slabs recently that I just have no interest in. Or it's because I've been following the card prices of these players, or some of them are injured, or I'm just not collecting their cards, so let somebody else enjoy these cards. You know, and if somebody resells my cards, hey, more power to them. I got no problem with that. You know, if I have to be somebody's supplier, hey, man, you know, it stays in-house, which is cool. You know what I mean? But don't tell us what to do. Don't do that. Don't go on YouTube talking about I'm going to open up a pack a day until I pull a $5,000 card. You know, we're talking about, you know, he made a video about this recently, as a matter of fact, where he went and bought all these cards out of his own pocket. So I don't understand how that works. You're basically stealing from yourself, and he made no profit, or after all the appraisals were made in that video, he lost money opening up all these cards. Serves him right. That's what you get for trying to flex. Oh, let me open up all these cards and let's see if I can pull a parallel or an auto or a refractor or a numbered auto or a parallel with a relic in it. No, that's what you get for flexing. Don't do that. Enjoy the hobby. Take that kid-like essence and put it into the content, man. That's what I try to do. Yeah, I know some of my videos could be real miserable and off-topic. You know, a lot of you sympathize with that, and I appreciate that. But at the end of the day, it's all about escapism, man. You know, when you're out there flexing, and that's the evil part of this whole hobby, is the fact that now people are treating it like it's gold and platinum and silver. I'm lucky I make the money I make, and it's not a lot. I had, like right now, this week was a great week for me. I'm lucky I made the money I made, but I'm not making $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. $10,000, $100,000. I'm not that type of seller. I'm not baller like that. I'm just small potatoes guy like most of you are. But this guy just loves to flex and tell you what you shouldn't do with your collections. Whether it's Transformers, TCG, Pokemon, you know, whatever it may be, sneaker collecting, all this kind of stuff. These people are not the arbiters of the hobby. You do with your stuff as you please. I might not agree with some collectors out there in particular. I'm like most of you. I can't stand breakers. I really don't. And there are a couple of guys that are out there that are rebels, like Western New York Cards. He's rebellious. He's a complete rebel. I love his content, you know, and he's a good guy, and he stands up against this kind of shit. Good for him. Very good for him. I haven't responded in any of his videos lately, but he's a good guy. And he seems to be a real stand-up guy, and he talks about this sort of thing. You know, he doesn't make it exclusively about, you know, negativity in the hobby, but he does come out on that rare occasion talking about things like this. So, but you know, it's already been recognized by a lot of us that, you know, he likes to flaunt, he likes to show off. You know, a lot of it to me is clickbait, in my opinion. There are some things that I do like that he puts out there, but the rest of it, like this video he uploaded recently about, you know, junk wax and parallels and autos, he's so out of touch when it comes to that sort of thing. I love to pull, you know, very extraordinary cards, but, you know, I'm not baller like he is. Like most of you aren't baller like that. Unless you buy and sell sports cards or any type of cards or anything in any hobby, and you're making good profit, then more power to you. For a guy like me, that roof right there is what matters the most. I'm putting food in my stomach. After that, you know, you have to take a time out like I am right now. You know, I wanted to order Bowman, I wanted to order Series 2, but right now it's just not in the cards because I need to start recovering, you know, the losses I have, which really isn't a lot, but anything helps, man. Anything that keeps that refrigerator full right there and them lights on right there and that fan over my head and the AC running in the background, that's more important to me than this. Geoff, come back down. Come back down to our level. Yeah, you got money. You got power. You're here on YouTube. Clearly you're making profit from YouTube. You're making profit probably from Tops and SGC and PSA. Let's get real now. You forgot your roots, more or less, and I think that's what this all comes down to. You forgot your roots because you're too busy out there focusing. I really don't have any parallels around me currently because my desk is a mess, but I think you all, you know, I would show you some parallels and stuff in autos, but I think you get the point. You're out of touch. You're really out of touch. That's all I got to say. Take care. God bless. Stay safe. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe. Smash that bell to receive notifications. Check out my eBay store, the Carolina Collector 001. The link is always in the description below. It does go to help support the channel and myself. I will see you all very soon. Stay cool if you're in hot areas like I am. As you saw, I was pretty much dying here on camera there for a little bit. And try to make the best of everything, guys. Sometimes life can really suck. But it's little things like this that was meant to make life just a little bit easier and happier. Have some fun, guys.